Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome to the From the Depths space project. Not really. I had a request the other day which asked, how do you make a space vehicle? And so that's what today's quick guide is about. It's basically how to make a vehicle that works in space and how to get it into space in the first place. So I don't want to say it's easy because to be perfectly blunt, nothing in From the Depths is actually easy, because it takes a while to learn it, and you need to go learn from people, blah blah blah. I never considered this game easy, but it is reasonably straightforward when compared to other stuff in the game. So, there's a few things to know. Firstly is that a lot of things that work in the atmosphere of Nature, which is about 0 to 500 meters in altitude, considerably less than Earth, the place we all live. There's a lot of stuff that works in the atmosphere and in gravity that does not work once you get outside of it. So you might hear the sound transition once we get up to about... wait for it. About up here. So once the camera goes above the cloud layer, that's where space is in From the Depths. So, first off, there's a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't really work up there anymore. So, Daddy Blades don't really work in space, jets don't work in space, well, propellers obviously do not work in space, and balloons, I don't really think balloons work in space either, because there's not really any gravity. But the one thing that does work in space is ion thrusters. These are pretty much the only thing that work in space as far as propulsion goes, so you're gonna need these and a lot of them. So we've got our ready-made tiny RTG powered spacecraft here that is ready to go to space. So we're just gonna strap some ion thrusters onto it, like so. We're gonna have some, and we're gonna do this off a PID, by the way. So first thing is first, we haven't set up the AI yet. Actually, we don't need a PID yet. Whoopsie daisy. So that, wait, and this, and that, and propulsion, and steering, and some roll control right here, and don't need a PID unless we really badly need it. So picture, so this is with simple AI controls. You can just set all this pretty easily. So let's set that to the roller preset. Let's set that to the roller preset. And that is picture. Right. We're all good on that front. So let's go to the AI over here. This is, hang on. Goodness. Electric engine is not connected. We've got 160 power. That's plenty. We do need some thrust things that come from beneath. So we've got our center of mass right here. Just two of them should do the trick. Pusher, spread to neighbors. And go over here and broadside, and we're just gonna jack that up to that. And in air, minimum altitude above land, we're gonna set that up in space. So we're gonna set that to 700. We're gonna set this also to 700. Max altitude 800, terrain projection height that, maneuver, and we're gonna set this to ship or tank. And that's basically it. And now we're going to do this. So this thing is very wobbly, because it doesn't have a PID. And I haven't set the pitch control. So I'm gonna do that. Adjustments, maneuver, allow hover, use pitch controls. And away we go. We've got our weird spindly thing heading into space. Now, that is probably the simplest way to do it, is just to use the regular AI controls and have something light enough that it can get past that 500 meter barrier. Which this thing is incredibly light, has no armor, so it can do that. So that's the simplest way to do it. You'll see this thing speeds up considerably once it gets above the atmospheric layer. Which is one of the perks of going into space, is because there's no air resistance, and you can make something really cheap fly very quickly. So, How are we doing? 500. Almost there. Let's see. What did I set it to? 700. Almost there. Almost there. Almost there. There we go. Now we're accelerating, and I just remembered we should do this as well. So if it flies too high, we can do something about it. There we go. And pardon, begging your pardon, all the people who get motion sick, but this thing is very wobbly. And since it's in space, it goes very quickly. This thing is only about 3,000 materials, and it's going about 80 meters per second, which is super nice. So yeah, that is the really, really easy way to get a vehicle into space, is just have AI thrusters do that. The problem, of course, with AI thrusters is that if you turn them off, they stay off. So, not even going to bother to save that. Instead, I am going to load up some stuff I made earlier, because the problem is, if you just rely on AI propulsion, that has its downsides, and if you rely just on ion thrusters, your vehicle might be too heavy to get out of the atmosphere. And there's two ways to deal with that. First, that you can have the thing just built in space, and built by another vehicle that's already up in space, and just get it to the proper altitude by having it out of play and setting it to the correct altitude there. Or you can have it launch itself. So, two ways to do that. I'm trying to remember where I saved these things, actually. Not there. There we go. That's where we saved it. So, easy launch space vehicle. One of the first ones is balloon. So this is a space vehicle. I'm going to pause it here. That you can spawn this underwater, and it still manages to get into space because it's got a lot of ion thrusters on it. But not so much to keep it launched. It does have a few. But if your vehicle is too heavy to escape the atmosphere, you can do the NASA-approved technique of just having balloons on it. And these things are activated by ACBs. So, where's our ACBs at? Here they are. So if the vehicle altitude is within negative 1,000 to 600, it'll activate the balloons. And if the vehicle altitude is above 600, it will disable them. So this thing is quite quickly heading up into space. Probably doesn't even need that much thrust below it. And also, I should mention, this thing is PID controlled. So, assuming if you know how to work PIDs and you're willing to tweak them, you can tweak this so the thing doesn't actually bounce around so horribly. I am not that fussy, and I'm not that good at tweaking PIDs, so not an issue. And the great thing about PIDs is that you can turn the AI off, and it doesn't fall out of the sky. The PIDs work anyhow. So this thing is just going to gently fly up to a nice altitude of 800 meters, and it is going to stay there. And because balloons are cheaper than just more ion thrusters, we've managed to keep the cost down just a wee bit. So that's probably one of the better ways to do it. And there is an alternative, and that is the single-use jets. So if you really want to get them up fast, because the problem with balloons, say you screw the pooch slightly and you spawn your vehicle into combat, balloons are really easy to pop. They have no health whatsoever. So what you can do instead is use ACBs to fire jets only within the atmosphere. So these are regular jet engines. They don't work underwater and they don't work in space, but I have rigged up ACBs to get this thing into space. So you see, it's just floating up, it's naturally buoyant, it's made of wood. So yeah, don't recommend spawning your vehicles in the water, that's not a good idea. Unless they are a submarine. Don't think it's actually possible. So yeah. If the vehicle altitude is within 0 to 600 meters, so once it's out of the water, it'll activate... What the hell is going on? It will activate the complex control T, which are these things. These things are not set to any form of control, so they're not set to push, they're not set to altitude or anything like that. My phone is buzzing, I'm going to ignore it now. And so these things will fire just long enough to get this craft into space, nice and quickly. And once it's past 600 meters, so keeping an eye on the altitude, Almost there, almost there, almost there. Wiggling in circles, wiggling in circles. Whee! Almost there, and done. It is in space, and now these jets are not needed anymore. So, you could combine both those two things pretty easily. I'm going to turn my phone off now because I don't want to hear it. There we go. Very pro of me to leave the phone on during recording. So in any case, those are two ways to get it into space, or three rather. And that's basically it. That's it's pretty simple to get a craft into space. And if you don't know how PIDs work, there is a default starter PID setting, which I always use, and that is just 0.5, 250, 0.5. And that is for all three of these, and you can that'll get the thing working, and then afterwards you can tweak it. So you can set roll. I actually set the roll down a little bit because you think this thing is rocking around violently now. It was worse before. So yeah, that's how to get into space. And just for giggles, this is something I made for giggles. Is just I made a version of this thing that's armed, and it really goes high. Whee! How high did I make this thing go? Too high, I'm guessing. 1,500. So yeah, space vehicles are really powerful for numerous reasons. Firstly, they fly too high for most things to reliably shoot at them. A lot of missiles can't actually turn in space because of fins. And, yeah, it's just you can get something moving really fast while still being very cheap and not using much power or fuel, so that's quite nice. Let's bomb a marauder from space. What are you doing? There we go. This thing is just gonna hover directly over something and just drop bombs on it. And yeah, so I do have a weakness for space bombers, I have to admit. It is a guilty pleasure of mine. I remember last time I played through the Onyx Watch campaign, I was doing it quite often. But they're not an automatic I win buttons, just so you know, because there are faction craft which can aim straight up enough to shoot you down, and particularly those of them which have lasers that can point straight up can still kill you. So space vehicles are very, very strong. They're not invincible, and don't assume that you're going to win the game easily just because you're in space, because you can get unpleasantly surprised, as I have. Hubris, thy name is space travel. So, hopefully that helps those of you who are struggling to get your craft into space. I should point out, obviously, that all the vehicles I've shown off in this wee equip guide are very small and very light and very cheap. If you want to get a bigger thing into space, you are just going to need more of everything. You're going to need more thrust, you're going to need more balloons, you're going to need more of everything. So, cheap space vehicles, honestly, like, I really am just perpetually giggly at the fact that you can just have wooden space vehicles. There's something hilarious about it. And also, something I literally just remembered and almost forgot about is that if you don't want to use ion engines, because ion engines are expensive, so they are twice the cost exactly of a regular jet engine. So if you don't want to do that, if you want to keep the thing as ridiculously cheap as possible, I also recommend laying off the RTGs if you want to do that. Where are the steam engines? So, you will see, where is it? Steam jets. So, I believe I still have one of these somewhere. Nope, I've lost it. I have lost it completely, but you can use steam jets in space. So if you prefer to use steam, it's actually a pretty good idea. I'm just going to launch something into space again because it's so hilarious. Yeah, I'm literally just wasting time now because launch. This one uses balloons because balloons are great. So, that's pretty much it for space vehicles and how to get them into space. Hope it was helpful. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon if you like, it really helps. Thank you to all my current Patreon supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths. Farewell!